Good evening, captive audience. Welcome aboard. It's another wonderful Wednesday, and it's Don Anderson and his pal Leslie Schneider here to bring you the latest. What say you, Leslie?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's Wednesday. I love this podcast. I love having the opportunity to just talk about all the stuff that I'm carrying around during the week.
We got to get it out of our system somewhere,
Got to
right?
get my rant on, yeah, a little bit. But anyway, yeah, I've had so many things bouncing through my head this week. So anyway, let's go.
All right, let's rock and roll. So I thought I'd start with my little opening monologue, if you will, and that's just talking about one of the things I've noticed in the conservative press is there's this tendency to how can I say it? We continue to operate in the mindset of thinking that the leadership of the Democratic Party has the same goals as the leadership of the Republican Party. And once upon a time, I'll call it the JFK era. That was true. They had different ideas to get to the same objectives that we had, which is make the country a better place. But somewhere in the last 5 to 10 years, I think that ceased to be the case. And we keep having discussions as if we're trying to get to the same place, and we're just not. We have to start calling them what they are. And they are traitors who hate America and everything it stands for. Nothing else makes sense other than to call it that. When you think about things like calling yourself a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state, that essentially means that you want us to secede from the union. No way can you stand as a country and have the states choose or cities choose which laws they're going to obey and which ones they aren't going to obey. That's just not going to work. The Democratic Party's already done this to us once. They fired on Fort Sumter about 120 years ago because they wanted to obey some laws, but they wanted to keep having slaves. We fought a civil war over that. And here we are again. Now they want to buy votes with illegal immigrants, and they're willing to destroy the country in order to keep doing it. And so it's just going to be up to us. I mean, I think start calling them what they are and stop beating around the bush. So there's my relatively short opening rant. Any comments or thoughts on that, Leslie?
No, I mean, I think it's true that our country has gotten just so crazy, off the rails, and now anytime you want to point out that somebody is off the rails, you have some sort of ist at the end of your name. You're a hater, you're a racist, homophobic. There's a name, and truth is there are people that love our country and love our ideals and love what we were founded on, and there are people that don't. And I'm sorry. Go find that place that you think is amazing. Go find the place that there's. I mean, I was just talking to a coworker today who's actually Australian, and he was asking me, what do you think of California, and what
Mhm.
do you think about the direction of the country? And I was like, I mean, I'm optimistic for the direction of our country now, but I mean, California is a hot mess. and,
Oh,
and I blame everybody who moved here, who didn't grow up here and doesn't really know what our state is about. And that's the same, with our country. It's like you shouldn't come here to change it. You need to understand what the roots are. You need to understand that we are a Christian foundational country, who is made up of freedom lovers. And truthfully, if you can't have as much freedom to walk around with a gun on your hip without somebody questioning your motives or your right to have it, then you really aren't free. And our whole country is founded on freedom. And anybody who doesn't believe that needs to go somewhere else.
and you look at what they've done. This is what it's been strategic. We got to stop, pretending like it's two sides to say it's been strategic that they've decided to destroy the country. In the three states they've destroyed the most, you could maybe argue Massachusetts is in the running for this too, but Oregon, Washington, and California, and Hawaii, those
And
four states they've gone after destroying the most, and they basically turned them into one-party states. I remember, and it's funny, I spent equal parts of my life, a third, a third, a third, like 20 some years in Oregon, 20 some years in Washington, 20 some years in California, right? So those are my home states. All of them I consider my home. Every one of them growing up, they were two-party states. In the last 20 years, every one of them became one-party states. And how they became one-party states was by flooding it with a whole pack of illegal immigrants and the combination of that and destroying a true electoral process by going to this mail-in ballot thing. So now we've had a one-party state for the last 20 years. And what happens in the one-party state is the same thing that happens in one-party states all over the world. It all goes to hell. And that's exactly what you see here. You go, for example, and you take a look at what's happening with these cities. I just posted the link, and that's just this one of many articles about Portland. Um, they're building a detox center in a regular neighborhood in Southeast Portland. A detox center. Who in the world wants to live next to a detox center? No matter how the neighbors protest, they're going to put that there anyway. And that's just one of a bunch of cases, and they do it all in very specific parts of town. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Portland, Southeast Portland is the white working class part of town. It's always been that way, right? Peaceful, fine, working class area. They've decided to move all the homeless tents there, all the homeless encampments. Every time there is a detox center, they put it there. They're opening up a shelter in Northwest Portland, doing the same thing in a neighborhood. The only thing you can think is that the objective must be to destroy those neighborhoods, because you would not want to live next to one of those things. And my whole thing is, why don't you put that in the nice part of town? They never put that in Lake Oswego, Westland, Oregon City. These would be, for those of you listening in from California, these would be the equivalent of a, say, Palos Verdes, or if you're in San Diego, a Del Mar. They're not putting that stuff in those neighborhoods. They always put them in some neighborhood where people are relatively powerless to destroy their neighborhood. It's just obscene, because the people who vote for this stuff and do this, they never live in those neighborhoods. They never vote for it in their neighborhood. They want to put it in somebody else's neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's real funny. As we've been watching some of these, chickens come home to roost. I was listening to, or I guess I was reading, an article in the Epic Times, or Epoch Times, however you say that. And they were talking about how they're moving Space Wars to Huntsville, Alabama. Did you see?
I saw that. Yes.
And that Colorado was really upset about the move, and they were vowing to not let it go, as if like somehow they own it. And Trump's response was, well, Alabama really wanted it, and Colorado provides for allows for mail-in ballots, and no voter ID. So they've already showed us that they're proven to be dishonest people. So we don't want to put our space technology arm there. And I was like, here we go.
Yeah. Plus, it made better business sense too. I mean, land and housing and all of that's a lot less expensive in Florida. Why? Because they don't have all these crazy building restrictions.
Yeah.
It's safer. Why? Because they're pro-police. They actually back the police. They actually put people in prison. There's no such thing as, what is it? No bail.
No bail. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about Alabama. It's not.
Well, I'm sorry, Alabama.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? Same thing. They don't have that stuff there, so it makes better business sense to move to Huntsville.
Yeah. I mean, plus you've already got some other things, there too. But so you already have talent and you have a pipeline. But again, I just holding these people accountable. Same thing with Chicago. Trump is teasing guys last week, and they're writing out executive orders. We are not going to cooperate with the feds, and next thing you know, we're coming.
The incredible thing about that is, if you talk to the average man in the street, which the large press never does, they want that. I mean, can you imagine living in a neighborhood? I saw this 4,000 people. What? 4,000 people. That's right. 4,000 murders in 5 years. I mean, get your head around that. And it's not just, that's concentrated in a couple of zip codes. We say Chicago, that's a big place, right?
Yes.
We're talking probably South and West Chicago. You're talking a couple of zip codes. 4,000 murders. What is that? Is that over 100 a year, 200 a year? And that's not wounded or shot. That's not casualties, to use the military term, right? The casualties are probably 5 times more than that. 4,000 dead.
Okay. Well, wasn't it 6 just over the Labor Day weekend? It was 6 killed and 22 shot, in Chicago and downtown. I mean, again, and you talk about what we want in our backyard, what we'll put in other people's backyards. I mean, like you said, these are very concentrated areas. This is not, Lake Geneva, Illinois. This is right. These are not the bougie neighborhoods. These are not the affluent neighborhoods. These are places where, these people already, I mean, they are living in a war zone, and they have, little to no hope. The schools are crappy. There's no, good job opportunities. There's no outlook. There's no positive outlook. And the nerve of these these electeds, the governor to do an executive order preventing state police from cooperating with the feds. You're not handling your business. Your
That's
house
it.
is
Yeah.
out of control. Your children are on drugs. Your roof is caving in. Like, who are you to say that you couldn't use a little help? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Well, and this is the thing where I mean, there's a cadre of conservatives who would argue it's Trump derangement syndrome, and I'm not saying that that's not the case. People are so crazy that they'll vote for something that's obviously not in their best interest. I'm talking about the politicians now.
yeah,
It's not in the best interest of the citizens, not even in the best interest of them getting reelected, all because they hate Trump so much. Now, certainly there's probably a component of that, but I think there's a whole nother component of we want to destroy the United States, and the best way to destroy it is to cause chaos. Um, I can't remember the name of the outfit right now, but back in the 20s when Lenin started the whole thing in Russia, one of the things they wanted to do uh, to spread communism around the world was they put together an organization. The name of it escapes me now, and the objective was to set up all these communist parties all over the world. And part of that was with regard to the United States. In order to flip it, they thought the way to do that was to cause massive race wars and race riots. And so they put into place a whole bunch of movements in order to create that. And this is, I think, the grandchild of that thinking, you will. It's by design to destroy the country. Speaking of that, it's just incredible how well things have held together in spite of their best efforts. It's incredible to me that we haven't had, for those of you old enough to remember, we haven't had another Kent State. I'm just blown away at the level of discipline and control that these guardsmen, ICE people have had um, to not shoot anybody. It's incredible because that's what they want.
yeah, absolutely. They want another scene like, at the border when they could manipulate that image of the, border patrol agent, whipping people, which was all, fake. But yeah, absolutely. But the discipline that Trump has with his team is really rolling out, into ICE and some of these other departments, CDC, with Robert Kennedy at the helm now. I mean, they are really holding it together, and I think doing the work that maybe they've been pent up wanting to do this good work for so
Well,
long, and now all of a sudden they see an opportunity and they don't want to mess it up.
I'm certain of that, and I'm certain it's all being strategically planned and timed. And those of us who are like, "Hurry up!" I think we need to be patient. I think there's a reason for the timing and all of that. I mean, you got to think we've got midterms coming. One other thing, I'd be neglectful, but I didn't bring this up. Did you notice that Newsom is now looking to bring the state police in to do the same thing that Trump's doing?
Yes,
Unbelievable.
yes,
And
yeah,
he's doing it because he had to. What else is he going to do? I'm
that's
sure
right.
he's looked at the polling data, and it's not because he wants to do it. It's if he wants to run for president, he can't run with the track record that he has.
Yeah. I honestly, I mean, I truly believe that our voting, our election integrity in California has been so abysmal. I honestly believe that our system has been rigged for probably 20 years because there's no way that Gavin Newsom legitimately survived a recall effort. There's just no way. I mean, you've got Gray Davis who was recalled, and I mean, he was like nothing compared to Newsom, right? And then what was after Gray Davis, I think it was Schwarzenegger who stepped in, but I mean, it was just like I just look around at our elected officials, and I think there is no sane person who would vote for you, and certainly not a majority
No, that
people. There's not that many crazy people in our state.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. I looked at the election when they stole the election for Biden back in, was it 2020, and I thought there's absolutely no way that you can convince me. Now certain cities and zip codes, I get that, right, but that the majority of
Yeah,
people are that stupid yet, I just don't believe it. Yes, a significant percentage. I think 35% are insane, right? And that was proven when Biden debated Trump and just embarrassed himself, and 33% still said Biden won the debate. Then that confirmed what I thought. I already thought 30% were crazy. That's about right. About 33% are absolutely insane. But the rest of the people are not insane. And I don't think that's the case with California either. So it's a combination of the mail-in balloting stuff and
Mhm.
the illegal immigration stuff and the massive cheating,
Yep.
I think, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I think California's going red. I do.
From your mouth to God's ears, friend.
Yeah, it's just not. There's not that. There's when you clean up the voter situation. Number one, number two, when people see with their own eyes irrefutable evidence of how atrocious the Democratic Party. Now you can look at the cities. You can see for yourself. Look at that. Look
Yeah.
what happened in D.C. Look what's happening in L.A. Look what's
Yeah.
happening in San Francisco. Look what's happening in San Diego. You can see with your own eyes what they're doing. You
Right.
can see with your own eyes what happened with illegal immigration. They said they couldn't do anything about it. The man gets in office, and in 3 weeks, they turn it off.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
0 off.
so he's going to Chicago next. You think he's going to Detroit? Well, and actually, he didn't say when. He never gave a
Mhm.
timeline, right? So Detroit. You think he's going to San Francisco? Where do you think he's going after that?
That's just a straight guess. I mean, because my bias would say, come to the Northwest. I mean, Portland's the most per capita, the worst of the worst. But Chicago would certainly give you the most bang for the buck in terms of electoral votes and eyes watching on it.
Okay,
So, yeah.
but remember, so think about this, put this into the mix. So, Newsom is trying to jam through, Newsom and the Dems are trying to jam through this redistricting. We have an independent redistricting commission that was formed, I think, in like 2000.
Mhm.
And everyone's been happy with it. Voters, voted this in. This commission was formed. They're apolitical. Supposedly, people have been real happy with them. Well, now because of what's going on in Texas and some of the other red states, Newsom's responded by now trying to redistrict in California because if the Republicans gain more seats in these other states, right? Then they have to go back. Then they're going to have to figure out a way to make it up in some of these. So the blue state governors, of course, are very willing to pitch in and so and try to redistrict. So Newsom's got this plan. Excuse me. It's going to have to go to the ballot in November. And I mean, there's already been just a huge outcry from conservatives that, like, I mean, first of all, we have like no Republicans in the state, in the state Senate, but state or assembly, we're gonna lose some Republican seats that way, and I'm wondering if there might be some strategy to getting the feds in to clean up California ahead of that November election. That if he can put some results out there for people to see, then it'll be hard to go along with anything that Newsom's doing or give Dems more seats.
Well, there's a certain logic there, but here's the thing: the overall map for the next 2 to 4 years is horrendous for them in terms of that topic. So think of it this way: so the Democrats have been doing the gerrymandering game way better than Republicans. Remember, Republicans have been sissies, laying on their back, taking it in the what for the last like 20, 30 years. The Dems have already pretty much maxed out all the gerrymandering action they can do. Republicans have a huge runway in order to like match what the Democrats have been doing. I think I saw somewhere, and these are rough statistics, but in California, say for example, like something like around 35% of the population is registered Democrat. Well, sorry, registered Republican, but they only got maybe like 10 or 12% of the seats. I mean, so it's like way out of proportion. And the same thing is true in all the blue states, but that's not true in the red states. There's a lot more runway. So I can't remember the names of the specific states on the Republican side that are doing this in addition to Texas, but it's enough that it winds up being something like a 20 or 25, vote swing just in the next 2 years without doing anything. Take that back. I think it's like 15 to 20. It's 15, 16 votes anyway. They're going to swing just from that, no matter what happens in California. Plus, California is going to lose electoral votes anyway because of the census. I mean, Republicans are looking at in the next couple of years, looking at the census. If they change things, say that number one, the population of California is going down, so they're going to lose from that. Number one. Number two, they're not going to be able to count illegals as citizens. Citizens only get to count towards the electoral college. I'm pretty sure that's going to change. And number three, the Supreme Court's about to eliminate racial gerrymandering. That's the other thing that's about to happen. When you start adding all of this stuff up, and we haven't even gotten to the 2030 census and what's going to happen as a result of that, California's going to lose a whole pack of votes anyway. I think they're going to lose I think they're set to lose 4 or 5 by 2030 right now without any of that happening. So because the Democrats have run people out of the state.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. They have. I was listening to an interview with Eric Anderson, and it's I don't know, a couple months old actually, but they were at, mentioned, sanctuary cities and,
Mhm.
corruption in the Democratic Party, and how, he became, he was investigated, and I mean, he was pardoned, but I mean, he was looking at potentially going to jail, because he had accepted upgraded plane tickets, I think, from Turkey, from officials in Turkey.
Mhm.
And really the only reason why he got himself into that trouble is because he went against the Democratic narrative. He's a lifelong Democrat. He was everything that, the Debs would want, public safety background,
Mhm.
black man, super Democrat. And then all of a sudden, they started shipping in immigrants to to New York, and he started complaining about it, and he got the message loud and clear. You need to just sit down and shut up and play along. You're
Right.
off. And I mean, he was looking at potentially 20 years in jail.
Oh yeah, they will come after you personally, um, and they've shown that. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's like any of these cults, that, you get you get sucked in because they have something really interesting and exciting, and, maybe safe that you feel empowered, you feel inspired, and then you feel safe being in this environment. And then you kind of get lulled into this, minor psychosis maybe. And then when you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I need to get out of here. Oh no.
Yeah.
It's a one-way street.
Well, I'll give you here's my theory for this. So I think there's a correlation. So the most unchurched part of the United States is the Western United States, and the most unchurched part of that is Washington and Oregon, and California probably follows close behind. So nature abhors a vacuum, as it were, and something's got to replace that hole. So if you're not going to have a God, what are you going to replace it with? Well, these three people replaced it with a revolution, and
Yeah.
because they have nothing else to fill that hole. Look at how they're behaving. They're behaving like it was a religious thing. You
Hmm.
look at the insanity in their eyes, and you see these protesters. They're
Yeah.
screaming. They got blue hair. They got just they
Mask.
destroyed their faces physically with all kinds of like tattoos and nose piercings, and it's something otherworldly, and it's an affront to everything decent. I saw one of these protests, and it was woman had a shirt on that says something like, "I'm proud of killing babies." I mean, right? So that's the level of insanity, that we're dealing with. That 20% of the population has gone mad, and I think at the bottom, I think it's that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at our mental health crisis. I heard a stat recently, 1 in 5 Americans are on some sort of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. 1 in 5. And those meds all have black box warnings.
Yeah, and this is the thing about that. It's been studied that progressives are a higher percentage than that. And I can't remember the numbers anymore, but people who are progressive tend to be on, like 3 or 4 times the number you just stated. So these people have mental disorders, and you can look at them and tell.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
you can. You can. Well, yeah, I mean, so, mental illness or depression, anxiety, these are all conditions that are, we used to treat them by, talking it through, and trying to understand and trying to help someone improve their life and eat better and be more active and have more meaningful relationships. And, it was a very, very small number, very small percentage who like actually had some sort of mental break, I mean, for the most part, like, and as soon as all of these meds were put into the mix, I mean, not only are they actually not helping,
mhm.
because our mental health issues have gone through the roof, right? You would think that, wow, if these meds were really doing what they're supposed to do, then we'd all be happy and we'd all be holding hands and solving problems and super productive, and our marriages would be intact and our kids would be wonderful, and it would just be great. And it is not. It is
Well,
not.
in the pharmaceutical industry, they can't make money if it cures the problem.
Right.
So we could put you we could put you on, think about this for a minute. If I could put you on a drug that you're on for the rest of your life, that's pretty cool. Um, from a purely it's the same business model that drug dealers have. I
Sure.
can get this person hooked on a drug. It's strategic and it's well thought out and it's planned. Then you're going to be in that drug for the rest of your life. And the
Sure.
horrendous thing about this is these studies on these drugs are done, what do you call it, in a very narrow way. So it's just that one drug. They're not studying that drug in the real world where the patient's taking 5 or 6 other legal drugs, by the way. We didn't even talk about the ones that patient might be taking illegally. So we have no idea what the long-term ramifications of this are, which is one of the reasons why this whole thing with chopping children up and giving them all those drugs to keep them to be a gender that they're not, a lifetime sentence with no studies whatsoever around what the ramifications. I haven't even talked about the moral implications of that. I'm strictly talking about the physiologic implications of that.
Yeah.
Are absolutely horrendous, and they make a fortune on those people because
Yeah.
they're coming back over and over and over again for the rest of, and it's no irreversible.
Yeah, it's I was pretty alarmed when I was listening to this interview and kind of digging in, because it's not uncommon for anybody to be on Zoloft or Xanax, or like, oh, life is hard, my husband just lost his job, or I have little kids and I just am stressed out all the time, or oh, I'm going through a transition in my life and la 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 la, right? Or oh, I'm a teenager and
Mhm.
I'm struggling, with being a teenager, because it sucks being a teenager, but you could whatever fill in the gap, fill in the blank, for the justification for these drugs. And I did not realize that not only are there no long-term studies, there are no studies that exceed 12 weeks
Yeah,
for drugs.
yeah,
None.
yeah.
People are on these meds for years and years. And then once you want to get off of them, of course, you go through a great deal of withdrawal. And in some cases, you can actually cause brain damage to yourself by tapering off too quickly. Or, uh, yeah. And then, I mean, I don't know. I just, I,
Yeah,
I, I look at, you know, I just look at my kids and I think probably more kids. I don't know. I'm going to make this up, but it seems to be probably more kids than adults are on these meds,
mhm,
between ADHD medication and, like I said, anxiety and depression medication, SSRIs, and these are people that are just being messed with. I mean, the medical community is just being completely reckless with their mental health, their physical safety, the safety of others around them. Like I said, because they all have black box warnings. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, you look at the small print on almost all of these antidepressants. It'll say there's a possibility it'll cause suicidal ideation, for example, right?
suicidal
Yeah,
and rape.
yeah,
Oh,
suicidal ideation. So
so
you're
you're
already in a position where you have depression, which could lead to that. Now you're taking something that might cause suicidal ideation. Then you combine that with 2 or 3 other things, and you have some kind of a life event episode. Are we surprised that these kinds of things happen? And I'm not saying there's no place for these things. I think there's definitely a place for all of these meds. The problem is they're used way out of proportion to what they were originally intended to be used for, and that's the issue.
yeah, yeah. So, all right, what world problem are we going to solve next on?
Well, I'll give you one. I think one bit of good news before we jump to the next one, because I think this is absolutely brilliant. Have you heard that the Trump administration is looking at having a midterm convention? Um,
No.
okay, that's the next thing. So see, he's got 50 things going at the same time. So just like we're used to the every 4-year convention. He's looking to have a midterm convention prior to the midterm elections. I think that is absolutely brilliant. The guy's a showman. I got to give it to him, because think about what that does. That gives you an opportunity to have a platform to go, because remember what happens with midterms. People tend to not vote in the same percentages as midterms, especially Republicans. We fall asleep at the wheel all the time at the midterms. What he's going to do is make the midterm election an opportunity to celebrate all of the wins. So can you imagine a convention that lasts like a week, and all you have is that fantastic cabinet talking about all of the wins they've had? And there's been a ton of them. They happen so often we forget about them. I mean, can you even remember the strike we did in Iran? It's like old news all of a sudden. They're not even talking about it. And that was like huge. We wanted the next thing. We just had the strike on Venezuela. We don't even talk about it. We've got cartels are losing a fortune. We don't even talk about it. The border completely solved. DC solved. Inflation. Nobody's talking about that anymore. $1 trillion we're anticipating getting back just from the tariffs. All of Europe coming to kiss the ring. It's like what 8 different wars that he's stopped. It's unbelievable. People need to be reminded of all of that stuff, and it needs to happen right before the midterms. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I do too. That is going to be a massive full color brochure back to back, of everything that he's doing right. And anybody who was, at the beginning, or anybody who has become a skeptic, kind of midway through, he's going to be able to absolutely own that narrative. I mean, it was just like I was talking about a couple weeks ago, that like anybody who wants to be on the winning team needs to step into Trump's win and start owning that. You have got to get in on that momentum, whether you're a Dem or a Republican. Figure out a way to own it, and you will keep your seat.
Yeah. Oh, hey, this is like a this is like I don't even know if I could say once in a generation opportunity. This is an opportunity to utterly destroy. If we're talking, if this was the vampire, you have to drive the stake through his heart and kill it for good. This is the opportunity to utterly eviscerate the Democrat Party, make it either go away or just become something else. I can't remember what I was reading. It was someone writing about when the Whigs disappeared. The Whigs basically destroyed themselves over slavery and got replaced by the Republican Party. The Democrats, I think, are at that point where they are doing things that are so destructive to themselves that this might be the chance to absolutely kill them between 2026 and 2030. By 2030, win that election, destroy them at the midterms. I'm talking about come out of the midterms 25 or 30, more votes ahead, and then do that again in 2030. I think it's entirely possible. This thing's got to be killed, and now is the time to do it.
I hope you're right, Don. I keep waiting for something terrible to happen, but
Well, terrible has already happened to us, and if we don't do this, it will only get worse. And I got to tell you, we got to spend maybe the next time we do one of these, we should talk about what's happening in Europe, because I'm not sure if you followed any of that. It's absolutely amazing. I just saw, what was it in? Was it Germany? So Germany, the party is the ADF, Alternative for Deutschland, is what it stands for. ADF. That's the conservative party there. Think about this for a minute. They're now in the majority, but they keep doing everything they can to keep that party from coming into power. In the last 13 days, they've had 7 different leadership people in the party die. What's the problem of natural causes? It's unbelievable. And this stuff never gets to the American media, right? They're utterly destroying Great Britain. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick, because this is that whole World Economic Forum crowd that I've talked about, and the things that they're doing. Let's see if I can't pull this up, because it's utterly stunning. If you followed anything in the whole Great Britain thing, by the way?
No.
Okay, so let me just read you a few things that are going on in Great Britain. Right?
Shopping done, Don. I'm like, it's all I can do to just kind of.
Oh, well, I'm old and I don't sleep anymore. So Leslie, that's what it is. When you get 65, you only need 3 hours of sleep. So, audience out there, if anybody out there is over 65, comment on that. Let her know what it's like. You only got 30 years to live, so you got to take every freaking minute. I don't have time to sleep. You get plenty of time to sleep when you're dead.
The quick rabbit hole. But
anyways,
I had to grab this.
Check this out, though. This is amazing. So in Great Britain, in Scotland, a young girl was recently charged with the crime of protecting herself with a knife against migrants who were attempting to rape her. No charges were filed against the migrant, but she was charged with the crime. A British man was recently convicted of publicly burning the Quran. The migrant man wielding a knife against him received no jail time at all. A British citizen named Lucy Connolly, and Trump spoke about her. She spent 31 months in jail for posting an offensive tweet on social media. A man in Great Britain was arrested for stating publicly that he likes bacon. The British government was afraid that his preference for bacon would be offensive to Islamic migrants, and as a result, he was arrested for offending the sensitivity of illegal migrants. A British man stated publicly that Islam is not a religion of peace. His car was found burned, his house destroyed, and he has gone into hiding. The irony is astounding, by the way. In one town in Britain, they changed the noise ordinance so that the city can be blasted with Islamic prayer 5 times a day over the loudspeakers in town. British citizens have been raising flags all over the country. Now, I don't know if any of you all are following this, but you can find this. It's called Operation Raise the Colors. This is considered an act of rebellion by the leadership class. Cars flying the British flag are pulled over by the police, and the drivers issued a citation for disturbing the peace. One teenager was sentenced to 2 years in prison for publicly flying the British flag in Great Britain. So what you're looking at in Europe is what they had in store for us. Marie Le Pen, who ran for office in France for their Conservative Party, they basically threw her in jail and declared her candidacy illegitimate and pulled her off the ballot. Does any of that sound familiar? So they've been able to put the strategy in place in the Western European countries that they intended to put in place here. And it's just fascinating to watch that at play. So just get your arms around that. You'll never hear that in the national press. You've got to look around to find that stuff, but it's out there. Mind blowing, no?
And the only reason why they are not doing that to us is because we have the Constitution.
Well, and we have this Second Amendment thing.
Oh.
that makes us unique amongst all countries, because in every place in the world, whether you're talking, what is the first thing Hitler did? Took the guns away from the Jews. What was the first thing Idi Amin did? Took the guns away from the Ugandans. What's the first thing they did in Rwanda? Took the guns away from, I can't remember, it was the Tutsis or the Hutus, is one or the other, right? But the Russians took the guns away from the Ukrainians. They do it every single time before they launch their attack. That's how it rolls. And one of the reasons they haven't been able to do it, look at how hard they've tried for it. Since I've been alive, they've been trying to get guns away from us. And they haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
But remember, the Australians turned all their guns in for COVID?
Yep.
And then they got their butts all hauled into jail.
They did.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they were in jail. They were in those little COVID camps. They were, I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, they'd have done it here. It wasn't a Second Amendment.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And that's why I go back to my original premise that I started at the top of the show. They are not arguing for a different strategy to get to the same goal. They don't have the same goal. Their goal is not to make America a better country. Their goal is to destroy America and recreate it as something else, a Marxist one world government. That's the objective. Nothing else makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if you wonder what the purpose of a system is, you just have to look at its consistent outcomes.
100%. Like, you look at Great Britain, again, I use that example. They're destroying that country. I mean, you think we got immigration problems, and they got immigration problems from a culture that is 100% incompatible with Judeo-Christianity. It will not work. You take a look at the illegal immigration we have from like down south. I mean, at least they're Judeo-Christian, right? So in other words, you're probably not going to get your head chopped off, right? But
well,
over there,
I don't know about that, Don. I mean, the Mexican cartels that we're dealing with right now, they are not what we've encountered anywhere. I mean, these are people who will literally skin you alive layer by layer by layer.
Well, no, I get that. They're vicious, but the entire culture that you're dealing with that's moving into Great Britain and France is like that. It's not just a drug cartel. It is like horrendous.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But yeah, I mean, but again, I think it's all intent. It's all well prepared, well strategized. Um, yeah,
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 it's illogical to think of it this way. Doesn't make any would any rational person think you remove police from the streets and expect crime to go down, or that you would have cashless bail and expect that to work?
right,
Um, I don't see like oh they're stupid. No, they're not stupid.
right.
The your blue haired Aunt Jane with a nose ring in her head and and a couple of tattoos. She crazy, but she's a minion, right? That's all she is. At the top of the food chain, the ones that have the strings that control the puppet. That is your Aunt Jane. They're brilliant, and they're doing this on purpose. They're the ones who make sure she's hyped up on drugs, and believing insane stuff.
Yeah, and that she's fed lies. Yeah,
Right? Yeah. And it's brilliant in its conception, and it plays on on the Judeo-Christian theme of being kind. Oh, we want to be kind, and we don't want to hurt these people that have immigrated into the country. And what's the at the base of the Statue of Liberty? What does it say? Give us your
tired.
poor,
Yeah,
tired, poor,
yeah.
yearning to be free. And I saw that somewhere, and I thought, yeah, we wanted them yearning to be free, not yearning for free stuff. Not yearning for a free ride.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not what
free
we said.
ride. Yeah. Oh my,
That's not who we're getting.
no. No, it's funny. I've been hearing, it must be a popular theme on social media right now, but there have been a couple people that have been like pushing back on this, uh, rhetoric, I guess, about, well, America was founded by immigrants. And, the response is no, no, no. America was founded by settlers.
That's right.
America was founded by people who came to a place that had nothing and they built it into everything. That's who founded our country. That's who crafted the Constitution, right? Everybody else just sort of came and tried to put their fingerprints all over an existing plan, So we were expanded by immigrants, but we were built by settlers
Yeah.
and the generations that came from those settlers. So yeah, I definitely, immigrants have folded into our society, but I don't want to say that they built our country.
Yeah. No,
They
we can't. I think you're 100% right. We can't let them get away with that assumption, right? And too many times we let them get away with saying something, and it's true because they said it. No, that's not true. You know, immigrants came and helped uh, those who took it, accepted the concept in the heart, came here, wanted to take advantage of freedom, wanted to be a part of this great grand experiment, wanted their bust their butts to move ahead. Yeah, they helped this thing get better, for sure. But they didn't create it. We benefited from the ones who've come here and wanted to do that. And there's legion number of people who've come here and done that. But we don't benefit from people come here who want to destroy it, who want to take it apart, who want to make it something else, or want to take what they have somewhere else and bring it here. If
Yeah,
where you had somewhere else is better, then keep your musty butt home. Don't come here. If you want what you had at home, why are you here? Stay
right,
there if it's so much better. But
right.
people who come here who want to help make this a greater place, who want to like benefit themselves and their families by buying into the concept of what makes America great all day long.
Yeah,
But you must come in the right way,
yeah,
like
yeah,
every other country in the world.
right. And if you really want to truly benefit from this country, you have to contribute to it constructively. Otherwise, I mean, you could say that people are going to come here and they're going to break the system and they're going to be criminals and they're going to profit, but they're really not profiting. I mean, if you're a criminal, you may have a lot of money in the bank, but you're busted and broken spiritually. Like you're not whole.
Mhm.
So really the only way to become everything that our country promises is to be part of the honest system.
Yeah, and to do that, you have to, you have to take the oath, mean the oath. You pledge allegiance to a new country. You're not a citizen of some other country. You're a citizen of this country, and this is your new home. which means you learn its language and its customs.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't keep your own culture in terms of, the food and all that other great stuff. Thank goodness. I want you to bring that because I love eating that food. Right? But you have to buy into what makes America great, and you have to follow her laws and customs. And if you don't, then you should stay where you are.
I agree. I agree.
And the proof is in the pudding. If this is such a horrible place, then why we have this mass number of people trying to get here? This is always the baseline argument you can use, by the way, with anyone. The West has the system of governance and way of life in the West for the last 200 or 300 years is better than any place else on the planet.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
Now,
Right.
you can call me racist, you can call me homophobic, sexist, you can call me all that stuff you want, but the proof is in the pudding. And the answer, if you want the evidence, what direction is immigration?
That's right. That's
I don't
right.
see people immigrating. I don't see people beating doors down to go to Turkey, Cuba, Russia, China, North Korea. Yeah, I ain't seen it. They sure as hell ain't trying to go to Venezuela because they lost 30% of the body weight down there, right? So, the superior way of life is the Western way of life, and it's based on the concept of Judeo-Christianity as its foundational principle, free market economics as set forth by Adam Smith, and rule of law set forth in the Constitution in the United States. That's the best system ever devised. Now, it is the best system because that group of 56 people who put this together, they studied every other system that came before it. So those other cultures, those other countries, all of those, they all contributed to this because we learned from that, and they built this phenomenal system here that's the best the world has ever seen. And the proof is in the pudding. Every time you flip a light switch, every time you turn on your water faucet and water comes out and the lights come on, we take all of that stuff for granted. And we've not done a very good job of telling our kids that. They think that stuff's just normal. It ain't normal. And it works because of the three principles I just stated. You go to South Africa, they don't even know if the lights are going to be on right now. The same thing's true of Venezuela. I'm not sure if you heard about Iran. Nobody's talking about Iran anymore. They have a massive water shortage in Iran. They don't have water. How can you not have water in the desert? You don't plan for that? But they don't. And there's reasons for this. It ain't because of colonialism.
Yeah. Right. No, that's not happening in Iran. I don't know.
Well, and we're too afraid. And some of us, we feel like we're going to hurt people's feelings by telling them, sorry, this is the best system ever devised by man for people getting along with each other. Nothing else has come close. Is it perfect? No, you're not going to get perfection in this life. But is it better than everything else ever devised? Well, what the British devised was the runner-up. But after that, it's a long gap between number 3 and 4.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're coming down hard.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going anywhere.
No, I hear you. Well, and the thing is, as every generation, I think it was Ronald Reagan was the last one that said it, something to the effect of, if you want freedom, you're going to have to fight for it to keep it.
Right.
And I think I think about this all the time. I remember when the Berlin Wall fell. I think I was 29 when it fell, and I was in the Air Force when it fell, and I was kind of a student of history at the time. And I didn't buy into totally. People were talking about it's the end of history at that time. If you were reading Time magazine and all this stuff, I was smart enough to know, no, man's gonna find another way to destroy himself. but it felt awfully good. The Cold War is over, and here we are. Not 30 years later, we're back in the same soup. Because we've lost sight. We got fat and dumb and happy. I remember thinking in the early 2000s, I can't believe how rich we are. And I'm just reflecting back on the conversations my parents used to have when we were kids. And they were always super appreciative. They preached this to us all the time. They had talked to us about how, man, air conditioning, that's amazing. Color TV, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh, my car has intermittent white windshields. That's like astonishing. This is the way the household conversation would go for us all the time, right? We got to go out to eat to a restaurant. Wow. And we've forgotten all of that. We got fat, dumb, and happy the last 30 years. I mean, our poor people live in a way that's like unbelievable, not just to the rest of the world, but unbelievable to a generation born 2 or 3 generations ago.
Well,
Um,
now it's like there's this degradation where it's not just about poverty, because of course there's still poverty, right, in America, but it's not, I don't think it's the poverty as much as the degradation that's really grinding people down. And that happens when you lose sight of the morality, and then you start destroying yourself, right? I mean, I'm not you know what I mean? And that's kind of where, I don't know what your family finances were when you were growing up, but the gratefulness, that your family instilled in you, it leads me to believe that, whether you had, a night out once every other week or a night out, once a month, like that feeling of gratefulness is still intact, and that will sustain you through, the ups and the downs
of
of life.
life.
Of course,
Yeah.
it
I
just
mean,
feels like, as our country has become, has been eroded, intentionally, and the educational system has gone down, and the family structure has been broken, and crime has gone up, and mental health has declined. This is all this, like, internal degradation, this rotting, that you kind of have to get through in order to get to the good stuff, you know
well, it's a poverty of
yes.
spirit. We got plenty of stuff from a material perspective. We got more than we've ever had in history, right? In spite of whatever problems we've had, we are super wealth materially. It's a poverty of spirit. And I remember reading this a while back about when Jefferson, I think, wrote the Declaration of Independence, and that line around the pursuit of happiness. Well, pursuit of happiness in the 18th century didn't mean that didn't mean what it means now. The meaning of that now would have been in pursuit of virtue. So they were in pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of
Hmm.
virtue. Now start changing the words around and think about how different what that different meaning
Yeah.
would be. So you wouldn't have these schools running around saying that they are a what do you call it, a school that's in pursuit of a college degree, right? Like that's the most important thing you'll ever get is a college degree, or you measure your success by the kind of job you got and the amount of money you make. They measure success by your virtue, um, pursuit of virtue, and we've gotten away from that. And part of getting away from that is having family structures, going to church, following the moral code, right? Instead, it's like pursuit. Remember the old saying from the '60s: "If it feels good, do it. Don't hold back." All of those sayings. Yeah, you can do that, but ultimately, if you are about pursuing just what makes you feel good, you're going to wind up being
Yeah.
lonely pretty
Well,
quickly.
the pursuit of
Uh,
virtue requires a lot of discipline. It requires a lot of, you know, withholding. Yeah,
sacrifice.
yeah, and people, like, from the '60s on, it's just been like, I don't need to hold back. I don't need to, abstain from sex because now I've got the birth control pill. Oh, I don't need to stay married because, I can go out and, make my own money and I don't need a man. Oh, I can, wait until I'm 40 to have kids, because I deserve a career, and, and all of these things are just,
They're empty. Think about the best things and the best things you've gotten out of your life. You got the best things out of your life because you gave something else up to get it. I remember thinking, yeah, it'd be very cool. Me and my wife, hey, let's get married, both have degrees, both can match, make a ton of money. Why have there's no logical reason to have kids. They cost a fortune and they get in our way. Fortunately, we woke up from that stupidity, had kids, and you realize, oh my God, the best thing that ever happened to you was like, having your kids or marrying your wife or husband or having your siblings and your best friends, and that these are like the great things in life, but they all require effort and sacrifice. It's like you want to be a great athlete. What do you have to do? You have to do a whole bunch of stuff you
yeah,
don't want to do. If you want to be if you want to be like a miler, well, you got to get up and run those
yeah,
damn miles. You want to be a hurdler, you got to get up and do those hurdlers. You want to be an accountant, well, by golly, you got to study for that CPA, and that ain't any fun. Anytime you want to improve yourself, you have to like stretch yourself. And we keep lying to people, telling them life's supposed to be fun and games and feel good
yeah.
all the time. And that's not even where what is it? There's celebrations and there's parties. Parties are pretty useless and fleeting. Celebrations is what you do when you've
Yeah, it's an
accomplished
appreciation.
something. Much better to have celebrations than
Yeah,
parties.
yeah, that's true. That's true, Don. Yeah, it's the depth, and we're missing that, and our kids are suffering, and we're suffering, and gosh, I mean, I saw something where there was an article. You might have read it too. There was was it in the New Yorker or something, and they were talking about how, it's the whole trad wife, phenomenon that us is so
Yes.
beside themselves over, and that women are leaving the workforce at
Mhm.
high numbers, and in particular,
Yeah.
the age group of these women, the biggest marker, the biggest identifier of women, or I guess shared characteristics, was they had children under the age of 5 in most of the
Mhm.
cases. And this, it was like, who would want to stay home and raise their children? Like, that big push that the Ukrainian, army, you know, propaganda machine is pushing out about, following pregnant women, Ukrainian, women on the front lines, and like they're staying the fight, they're fighting until they're 8 months pregnant, and then they're hurrying back to the front lines. And, the men are like, we don't want to work with, Martha. She just had a baby 2 weeks ago. Like, you know, and, oh, and, could you believe it? Could you believe how they discriminate against, this must be sexist? Like, no, maybe people just like know that Martha should be home with her baby. She's probably tired and cranky. I can tell you from personal experience, Martha is tired and cranky. So,
That is one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my life. I saw that story, not just saying that, about the woman 8 month pregnant on the front line. Are you mad? For a whole bunch. We're not going to talk about the physiological issues with doing that kind of work 8 months pregnant, right? We're not even going to
of
talk about
course,
that.
of course. Of,
You know, but here's the other side of that. You're going to send men out to fight for something. What are we ultimately fighting for? We're fighting for our women. That's what we're fighting for. And when you put them out there and make them be just like us, well, what the hell do we have to fight for? Well, that's insane. It's not going to work.
well, you are fighting for your women, but you're also fighting for future generations.
Yes. Mhm.
And if, the the woman that is creating that future generation is sitting right next to you, in a foxhole, you know, what, how is this reaching the goal? And, dumping her baby with the neighbors. I mean, I don't know who Martha's baby lives with, when Martha and Matthew are on the front line. I mean, what, I just don't know the point, but
The other thing this tells you is you need to surrender. If you're to the point where you got to send pregnant women to the front line because you used up all the teenage boys, you used up all the military age men, you've used up all the like older men, right? When you're calling up 65-year-old men to go into battle, I mean, I don't care how much they are lying through their teeth. There ain't no way Ukraine's defeating Russia.
no.
100 what? A nation with 150 million people fighting a nation with what? 15
Does
million people?
anybody actually, I mean, does anybody think that Ukraine is getting, well, and I was so sad to see that Trump had pledged more money for
Yeah,
military defense.
I,
Like, all,
I disagree with him on that too. That's the one. There's a handful of things I'm not getting what the strategy is. That's one of them. I don't think we should give them a nickel. Although I do think that, not that this helps that much, we're not going to give them weapons anymore. They got to buy them. So if NATO, if the European countries want to do that, then they can do it, but they got to buy the weapons that we're going to supply them. I don't even think we should do that. I let if France, Germany, and Britain want to do something that insane, let them do it on their own
well,
dime.
I mean, I guess I misread, what was happening, but I thought it was very clear that, like, we were not going to be participating in this anymore. And if Ukraine wanted weapons and cash, they needed to go look to the European, their European allies, who are looking at, these enhanced tariffs from us. So they shouldn't have a whole lot of money left over. Uh, so
I
I
yeah,
don't know. I was really surprised that to read that.
yeah. No, it's well, nobody's going to make us 100% happy, I guess, but that's one of the few things where I'm irritated with this administration. I just think we need to let you handle it. You pick the fight, you finish it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I agree.
we do what we can to stop it, but if at the end of the day, if they don't want to negotiate and come to terms, and if you're Putin, there's no reason to come to terms. You know, he's on the land. You're not getting him off the land. Should have thought of that when you invited them to
Yeah,
NATO.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine that he wants to continue, killing his people.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, he's fine with it apparently.
yeah. Well,
I mean,
with
he's got more. He's got the
yeah.
numbers.
Well, and you heard that hot mic moment that they had. Was it
Mhm.
today when he had that meeting with the military parade, Putin, Xi
Mhm.
Jinping, and Kim Jong Un, and
Mhm.
there was a hot mic moment captured during the parade, after the parade. Again, it was a long day, and I'm just sort of catching up. But where they were talking about uh, health and lifespan, and how project. Oh, one of these days we're all going to live until we're 150 years old, and it's like he's talking about extended lifespan and during a military parade. While he's in the middle of a war, while he's talking to the leader of China, raiding his own people for their organs. Like, it's just
Uh, maybe they know something we don't know, Leslie.
I'm like, some people are going to live until they're 150, but most of the people are not under you guys.
Nope, that's for sure. Well, you know, you're not going to believe this. I just looked down and saw it's 7:03. So once again, we weren't sure we'd have enough to talk about, but we've
We
done
did,
it.
we did. I need a light here for my computer too, but anyway.
Well, thank you all for joining us once again for a fun, wonderful Wednesday. You guys are a blast of an audience. Thanks for listening. Leslie, it's always a
Thanks.
hoot. And until
All
next
right.
week.
Yep. Till next week, next Wednesday, join us again. And if there's any topics that you want us to cover, we'll try. But put them in the chat.
There you go. Absolutely. I'm off to the Oregon Oklahoma State game tomorrow, by the way, for the annual family party. So that's where I'll
Oh,
spend the weekend. If we lose, cry for me, but we should be in good shape.
good weekend.
All right.
Alrighty.
Take care. Good night, everybody.
Bye.